Hi, everyone. This is Samira Daswani, the host of the podcast, The Patient from Hell. I have two incredibly special guests with us. And for anybody who is listening in audio only, I highly, highly recommend you log in and watch a video of this just to see what Molly and Tom look like. I have to start there. So you guys are matching, which is adorable.
Well, I got the memo.
But he doesn't have red lipstick on.
Oh, okay. Nor does he have the really cool pink glasses.
Right, right.
Okay, so what's give us a story here. We have to start there.
About the red lipstick?
Or the pink outfits?
Oh, well, we're the Pink Fund. We're the co-founders of this national organization, the breast cancer space, that provides non-medical assistance to women and men in active treatment for breast cancer. Tom came up with the name, the Pink Fund. So thereby, we're in pink for you all.
I love it.
We're on brand. We're on brand.
Beautiful radio colors.
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to be talking about brand today. It is, we have to cover that. But before we cover that, we especially recording this podcast today because of life going through different chapters. So can we maybe start there? What brought you guys here today?
Do you want me to talk first?
Sure.
So we've had this role reversal. 18 years ago this summer, I was in treatment for breast cancer. I'd had two surgeries and was in radiation. And fast forward, Tom is in radiation and chemo treatment for tonsil cancer. So he was the caregiver 18 years ago, and I'm the caregiver now. And I probably was the patient from hell. He will not be the patient from hell. I will be the caregiver from hell.
Well, I appreciate all of those intros. Can we maybe start with, so Tom, you're in the middle of treatment.
Yes. I'm in the second week of treatment of 7 weeks.
Oh, wow. How do you feel?
I feel good. I haven't been able to talk properly for a while because the tumor is invading my vocal cords. And hopefully as soon as the radiation progresses, my voice will get a lot better. And then it'll come to the point where it'll hurt so much to talk, I can't talk. So, but after 7 weeks, I'm supposed to be back to normal.
Okay. All right. So we have a new normal coming up. I will say, Tom, that your enunciation is much better than mine. And I don't have radiation or chemo to blame. So I think you sound great. Voice. Oh, thank you.
Sometimes he sounds either he's drunk or like he's underwater, like bloop, 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 like that, like bubbles.
She loves to make fun of me.
No, it's how it is.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
You said it yourself.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. But I can make fun of myself. You can't.
Okay.
How did you guys meet?
Huh?
How did y'all meet?
Oh, well, it was a Friday night in August of 1990.
Thursday night.
Oh, a Thursday night. And I had bought myself this garden arch, and I had 5 children. And I had to leave my children's father pretty quickly. And the kids kept swinging on it and upending it, like bringing it out of the ground. And I needed some cement, but I didn't know anything about getting cement or pouring cement or how I was going to anchor this thing. And my kids came home from the neighbors 2 houses over, a neighbor that I had said, you're not supposed to go over there because they had what was known as sort of a bad kid in the neighborhood who set fires. And, I didn't want them around him, this young man. And so he came home, and they were called the K's. He was Melvin Koika, a Swedish-Finnish guy. And she was Linda Koliopoulos. She'd been married to a Greek man with whom she'd had this young boy, but she was actually Polish, right? I can't, but anyway, they were known as the K's, and I just never wanted to know anything about what was going on over there. And so they come home and they tell me that they have cement and that Mel is laying a patio. So I went over with a bucket to see if I could get some cement, and this guy was troweling cement on the ground. And I asked him, he said, what do you want? And I said, well, could I have some of that cement? So he put it in a bucket and followed me home.
I've been there ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. But Mel, our neighbor, when he came back, after helping me with the cement, said, I am so sorry. She's such a pain in the ass.
And your reaction to that, Tom, was what?
I was mad at Mel for not having introduced me to her years ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they called me up and they said, would you like to come over and have dinner with us? And I'm like, oh my God. And we'll send Tommy, their son, over with a pizza. And I'm like, oh, well, you just helped me out with the cement. So I suppose I have to go over there. But when Tom first saw me, I had on this very sheer bathing suit cover up. And somebody had given me a pedicure. So back then they didn't have those pedicure foam things. And so I had Kleenex like woven between my toes.
She was a vision of loveliness.
Yeah. It was funny.
Yeah.
I can imagine this. You walking down, bathing suit, sheer cover,
Yeah.
Kleenex in your
Kleenex woven between my toes,
And we very quickly found out we had grown up in the same community on the other side of town.
Wow.
She went to school with my younger brother, and her sister went to school with my youngest brother.
Yeah.
Of course, she also went to school with my former girlfriend. So
yeah. Right.
that almost killed this whole deal.
Yeah.
Wow, what an incredible story. And this was what? How long ago was this?
1999.
Yeah. 24 years ago.
Wow. So 6 years into you guys meeting, Molly, you had a breast cancer diagnosis.
Right. So we got married in 2002. I had to really try Tom out. So Tom is my third husband. And I'm a happy member of the Third Time's a Charm Club. But I dated my first husband for 7 years before we got married, and that didn't work out. And then I dated my second husband only for 9 weeks before we got married. So I had to find some medium, so 3 years.
Oh, that's good.
And then Tom moved from Grosse Pointe, where we had grown up, took an apartment in our town to help me. I said, you've got to see if you can handle this because, this is a lot. So he would come over at 7 a.m. and help me get the kids off to school and then come back. He picked them up at after school for me.
3:30.
Yeah, because his schedule, he could make his own schedule and I couldn't. And so he really kind of got a feel for what he was in for, but I don't
Not fully.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if he would have married me if he'd doing all that.
Yeah.
Huh. What was one thing that was surprising for you? I don't know.
Pardon?
What was something that surprised you?
The kids, they were totally against my being with Molly or Molly being with me. And they were just dead set. They tried to sabotage everything between us. Whenever Molly and I would be alone, the girls would have to show up and sit and watch us.
Do you remember The Sound of Music, the movie? And you remember those kids did not want the new governess? So they put like a frog and then sit on a pine cone. They were trying to do everything to get rid of her. Well, my kids were trying to do everything to get rid of Tom.
Yeah.
Have they come around?
Sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of them is very attached to Tom and considers him her father. And my youngest son has really come around a lot. I think Tom actually getting sick is changing things a little bit. Like it's a little bit of a wake up call for them. That maybe, and they're reflecting, I think, a little bit on all the things he did to improve their lives, but it was hard for them. And their father really didn't help in terms of that relationship.
Can we talk about that a bit more?
Sure.
So this idea that not idea, I think it's a reality, but the reality that a cancer diagnosis changes family structure, changes bonds, changes relationships, changes how you perceive it, how they perceive you. I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on that. I mean, both lenses, Molly, from you, and then Tom, of course, both lenses for you too, because I've seen both sides of it.
So, two of my kids check in regularly. So I have 5 children. The other two, one lives in California and the other one lives in Atlanta. The one in California has actually posted pictures of us as a couple on social and asked her friends to pray for us. And she actually called him her stepfather, which she has never referred to him in 21 years of marriage as her stepfather.
Wow.
And then my youngest son went out and bought Tom all these clothes that he should wear to treatment. So he bought him some slacks that don't wrinkle, like his favorite slacks. They're like a Lululemon type slack. He bought him socks. You don't have those socks.
No, I
He
don't.
bought him these really comfortable socks. And then he bought him a sweatshirt, a hoodie that says champion on it. And he said, because you're going to be the champion, which was really nice. But then he insulted Tom by buying him underwear. Tom was like, what man buys another man underwear? So Tom likes to wear what I would call whitey tighties, but they're not white. And my son bought these sort of combination boxer brief things, right?
I guess, I don't know.
But anyway, so I am not washing the whitey tighties, the non-whitey tighties, to force him to wear the boxer briefs. So. I noticed he had him on the other day, so that was good.
I had run out of underwear, so
Because I'm
I
not
had to
washing
wear
it.
them.
Right, he had to. I'm not washing.
But
But talk about your kids.
well, my children, when I had left my former wife when my kids were 6 and 7, and I had a lot of single girlfriends and childless girlfriends, and they were very okay with that. But as soon as I found Molly and she had 5 children, they just walked away. And I think they said, what do we, chop liver? How come you couldn't have stayed? If you wanted a family, you had one. So they were not very close for a while, and they're but when I got sick, now they start instead of my calling them, they start calling me. And they're calling me
every week,
once a week, and sometimes more often than that.
And previous, that would be like maybe twice a year.
No, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, but most of the time I would have to call them.
Right.
So it's, I think they're concerned.
There's nothing like.
There are ones in Texas and ones in California, so we don't see them very often.
But there's really nothing like sort of this mortality in your face, right? Like, even though we've been assured that his disease is 90% curable.
95.
Oh, 95. There you go. And but I think it's a wake-up call. I think the most interesting thing that happened, I was kind of lamenting to my oldest daughter, who's not been a fan of Tom. She always wanted me to marry a very wealthy man. And when I was telling her that I was concerned about this, she said, well, Mom, your vows, your wedding vows. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, the part that says in sickness and in health. And I said, well, I've said those vows twice before. But my previous husbands, they didn't follow the forsaking all others part. So we never got to in sickness and in health. Nobody ever got sick. So, when they were floundering outside the marriage, they broke those vows. But I think, and I'm thinking that fidelity or lack of fidelity, I don't know what tests a marriage more, but I think illness tests a marriage quite a bit.
Yeah. I'm not married yet. My partner and I got sick a year and a half into us dating, and we had just moved in, like brand new, like it's been a month. And then I got diagnosed, and then my parents from India showed up. And this was pre-pandemic, and the pandemic happened, so my entire family gets stuck in the US. They were supposed to come for 2 cycles of chemo, and we were in a 2-bedroom apartment in Redwood City, and we had just moved in, and then treatment for me was 18 months. So like,
Wow.
for about a year, my mom was here, my dad was here for about 6 months, and my brother was here for another 6 months. And like we had a full house. And my partner and I had, it was funny when I was still in treatment when my mom left for India. And it was the first time that we were looking at this house and we're like, huh, like we actually have never lived together before.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't married, but it was definitely a test, right? It was a test of a relationship. And he and I argue that it was almost like our relationship has, it's almost like part one happened and part two is happening, and part one and part two have almost nothing to do with each other. It's almost a new relationship. It feels like a new relationship because we didn't really have a baseline. We didn't have something that changed or evolved or any of that stuff. So I do think it tests the relationship, and I'm curious.
I think that he stuck around with your mother living there for a year.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's a special guy.
That would test the relationship right there.
Oh yeah. No, my mom's lovely. He's lovely. No, they both had to go through their, in a lot of ways, this is the caregiver dilemma, right? They had like, it's not, and I'd love your take on this because you both have worn the hat in different sort of stages. But I feel as if the burden on the caregiver is in a lot of ways harder, because here I am going through treatment. I need my mom. I want my partner there. Yes, I'm the one physically suffering, but I'm kind of the center of the circle in a way. But the burden on them is not just my loved one is going through it, my daughter's going through it, my partner's going through it. It's also, I can't actually complain. I can't complain that I have my own struggles, right? That there's this whole dynamic that the burden is somewhat hidden. You can't talk about it. And I'd love your take on it because you both have kind of worn both hats. And I think that's, I'd love to learn from you guys, actually.
Well, Molly was very impatient. You know, you talk about patience, hospital patients, she's an impatient. And the first time she had her, was it the surgery?
Yeah, the first surgery.
First surgery. They had promised her in the hospital when she got out of surgery.
No, you were going to make it.
Well, okay. She was looking forward to a grilled cheese sandwich.
Right.
So I said, I'll make you one when we get home.
Yep.
So all the way home, she's thinking about this grilled cheese sandwich.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I get home and I make it out of cheddar cheese and Molly. She always tries to. Anyway,
okay, you tell your part.
So I always make it out of cheddar cheese, but when I got home, we only had like one slice of cheddar cheese or enough to make one slice, and the rest I had Swiss cheese. So I thought, well, she won't mind that. It'll be a grilled cheese sandwich. Well, I brought it to her and she had an absolute fit. She had a meltdown. I told you to bring me a grilled cheese sandwich. What's this?
Oh, so, I was so upset. And I almost threw the sandwich at him. I don't even think I ate it. I was so mad. I was like, see, so here's the difference. My motto was be prepared. So if he had told me I wanted a grilled cheese sandwich.
You told me that in the hospital.
Yeah, but you could have
stopped on the way home.
Yeah. Anyway, I would have thought, okay, maybe ask some questions. What would you like on your grilled cheese? Well, I want cheddar and tomato and whatever. I don't know. I'm pretty good with big things, but it's the little things that put me over the edge. But I started sobbing over the grilled cheese. And like, how could you be so stupid?
Yeah.
So, but in this case, this situation that we're in now, that's really a challenge is when we were at ASCO, I went to the head and neck meetings because at that point we didn't have a firm diagnosis, I don't think, but it was suspected.
Yeah.
And so I go to the head and neck meetings and I come back and I'm like, I'm the expert on this. I have all the information. I know what the treatment's going to be. I know what your side effects are going to be. And I started, sort of listing all this stuff that was going to happen.
Let me tell you the list.
Yeah.
She said, you're going to have a port. You're going to have a feeding tube. You're going to have,
I said you were going to lose your hearing.
You're going to lose your hair.
No, hearing.
Hearing?
You lost your hearing now.
You're gonna have neuropathy, so you won't be able to type. You won't be able to work at all. And you're gonna die in 4 months.
Ow.
Well, that's because somebody at ASCO told me their father had the same thing and was dead in 4 months.
So,
Oh.
Yeah.
so first meeting we had at U of M was with my surgeon, and I said, okay, I want to know what to expect. This is what Dr. Mom says I'm supposed to expect. And he says, well, okay, feeding tube, neuropathy, loss of hair,
Hearing.
loss of hearing, a port. No, he said none of those.
Yeah.
None of those.
He said you might have to have a feeding tube if you lose too much weight.
But he said feeding tubes are for sissies, so
He did not say
he did that.
Ow.
Yeah, he did. He said you got to man up. So anyway,
Okay.
Molly always looks for the worst possible scenario, and I always go day by day.
Right.
You know, I'm just going to say, let's see what happens.
Mm.
So we have two totally different viewpoints
Yeah.
about how to deal with this, and she drives me absolutely bananas. And the other thing she does, am I talking too much?
No, keep going.
Okay.
The other thing she does is she has to talk everything out.
Oh yeah.
Not once, but constantly.
Mhm.
So we'll talk something out, and I think, okay, we're done with it. The next day she'll start the conversation up again. And I said, we just dealt with this yesterday. Well, I want to talk about it again. Talks about it 2 or 3 times, 4 times, and I think, I don't know why she stops talking about it. I think she just gets tired of my not listening, but that's whatever happens too.
But that's
So
So one time he said, when are we going to be done talking about this? I'm like, when I've decided I'm finished, which I don't know when that will be.
yeah.
But I do think for me, and I've learned this about myself, that my strategy, because of some of the challenges I've had in my life, is to go to the worst case scenario and backfill. What will I do if this happens? And then I am prepared. Whereas Tom's like, well, I'm just going to waltz through this until I lose my hearing, or I can't. I mean, the doctor did say by the 3rd week, you may be in so much pain, you may have to take narcotics. And he's like, what do you mean? He said, well, you might have to take morphine because your throat's going to be very sore. And Tom says, I have a very high tolerance for pain. And I said, but you've never been through childbirth. So you don't know. And then he tells him that if he's on narcotics, he cannot drive at all. I mean, it's illegal. So of course, again, he has a high tolerance for pain. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that's the challenge. He wants to just wait and see. And I want to be prepared because I was a Girl Scout and that was the motto. You put your little fingers up and you were prepared.
So here's my question for y'all. So y'all have very different approaches. You guys have both been through it with different lenses.
Yeah.
You clearly know each other incredibly well. So when you're at that appointment with the doctor, how are you guys making decisions?
Tells me to shut up.
She does most of the talking.
Well, I don't go anymore.
I have to raise my hand.
Yeah.
May I say something?
Permission.
Yeah. So she doesn't go to appointments with me anymore.
Right.
Huh.
I go alone.
I think it may be better for him.
Much better.
Oh, I'm so glad to know that.
Yeah.
Because, probably somebody thinks, if he has a wife, she doesn't care. Although when we met with the doctor, I said I was your girlfriend. Yeah, I was your girlfriend. Anyway, I am kind of your girlfriend. But anyway, yeah, I think having been in this cancer space for almost 18 years, I know it's really hard for the caregiver, but I kind of think the patient needs to be in charge. Right? And it's like when I had my breast cancer and I was told I had 2 options, a full mastectomy and no radiation, or lumpectomy and radiation. And I asked my surgeon, well, what would you do? If it were you, what would you do? And she said, well, the thing is, it's not me. And she said, and I can't be responsible for your choice.
Yeah.
Right. So it is not me. And I really cannot thrust something on Tom because I don't want to be responsible for the outcome of his decisions. So
yes,
I'm trying hard to be respectful. And part of that is not going to the hospital.
Mm.
When we went the first time to the oncology, they're checking you in, and she said, well, how are you? This little check-in lady. I said, well, clearly not well if I'm here. I mean, what do you mean? Oh, she told me to have a nice day. I'm like, right. Thank you. All these people in the waiting room are having a nice day.
But so to that point though, Molly, it almost is like you had to figure that out with this new diagnosis, right? Because you started out with ASCO, learning all these things, aggravating symptoms, going to a couple of appointments, and that was almost it's almost, I don't know how to describe this, but it's like in spite of having 18 years in the cancer community, it required learning in this new context. Is that a fair assessment?
And I'm a firstborn. I'm kind of bossy anyway.
That's an understatement.
Right. So we had a neighbor who asked Tom to come over and do a favor a few weeks ago. And I was so angry that he had done this because I felt like, he had so much he had to do here, or nobody should be asking him to do anything. And then I wrote a text to the neighbor. First text I wrote is, please don't ask Tom to do anything in the future because he has cancer and, he needs to conserve his energy or whatever. I noticed that Tom texted him, ignore Molly. And then I had this revelation that Tom has to decide what he can do and what he can't do.
Yeah.
He has not asked for my protection in this scenario that we're in.
Yeah.
He's asked for my cooperation with his decisions. And I will tell you the funny part, Tom's son from Texas came to visit, and my daughter has a daughter that spends a lot of time with us, and she's 10, and she'd never met Tom's son, and he comes over, and I think she answered the door, she saw you, whatever.
She came out on the patio.
She came out on the patio and she announced, Papa has cancer and Mimi's drinking 2 glasses of wine every night, sometimes 3. So that was interesting. But I did decide today that I'm depressed. Yeah, I'm depressed. I told you I haven't done the laundry like for 2 weeks. It's sitting in the washer and the dryer. So I mean, I have a lot of underwear, so it's okay for me. But
Molly, how did you come to that conclusion? Because of the laundry?
Yeah, because of the laundry. I realized, that I'm depressed. And I'm coping really well at work, but I usually make the bed every single day, and like for 3 or 4 days, I didn't make the bed. I haven't taken the laundry out of the dryer in like a week or 2. And I thought, okay, you just better whip yourself into shape here. And my daughter, so all my kids said, Mom, you need to go to a therapist every single week, and you need to hire a cleaning lady to clean the house.
Okay, so slight tangent, but very relevant to laundry, I promise. My master's thesis was on clinician burnout. This is pre-pandemic, and it was in frontline workers, specifically looking at burnout. And we must have interviewed, I don't know, we had like 600 hours of interviews or something, a lot of interviews, and across the nation, different hospital settings, etc. And when you looked at residents, and when we're digging into like, how do you realize you are burnt out? I cannot tell you how often laundry came up.
Really? So then it's classic.
I honestly think it's one of those moments where like when you lose control over something that basic, when it's habit, when it's routine, and for some reason that habitual pattern is broken, and you see that like dirty laundry lining up or the clothes in the dryer that need to be taken out, and you just can't get to it. It's almost that when you have like a glass that's almost full with water and you put in that little stone in there and the water overflows, it's that moment of that little stone being put in there. It's a little stone, but it's almost like that is like the stimuli for the realization that something's up. And to hear you say laundry is just it's fascinating. Are you gonna go see a
I'm
therapist?
so glad to know I'm normal then.
Like all clinicians. Anybody who's not watching this, I highly recommend watching this on video. You will understand why there's a lot of laughter. Are you gonna go see a therapist?
Well, I have a therapist that I talked to, and I probably am gonna go see her, but then I'm like, I don't want to waste the money. I'd maybe rather have the cleaning lady. But I will say this, that I have a really supportive, caring staff we have here.
Yeah.
And friends have come alongside. We really don't have a lot of family left. We have our kids, but obviously our parents are deceased. And my sister lives on an island on the West Coast, and 2 of Tom's brothers are deceased. So we've had a lot of support, people making some food and those kinds of things and asking how they can help.
Yeah.
So that's nice. What's a therapist going to tell me that I don't already know? Like if I tell her I didn't take the clothes out of the dryer, is she going to tell me to take the clothes out of the dryer? No.
See, I don't understand this because I take comfort in certain routines. Like every morning, I get up, make coffee, do the dishes. It's almost without fail, unless I'm in a hurry and I can't do the dishes, but I always make coffee. I can't imagine getting up and just sitting down and saying, I'm not going to do that today.
You might, though, as we get through this, you might be tired.
I can't imagine.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
But that gives me great comfort.
Washing dishes.
Yeah, I don't enjoy it, but it gives me comfort.
You should thesis on that. Does washing dishes bring comfort?
I love that. That's such a good line.
It's hilarious.
I love that.
But I have to tell you that I have hardly washed any dishes in 21 years of marriage. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing. I was so Ark and I have a similar split of work. He is in charge of coffee and doing the dishes in the morning.
Oh,
so
that's
when you were talking about it, I was like, eerily similar.
Yeah.
And not 21 years in, just 5.
You'll get to 21.
Oh, thank you. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So Tom, are you going to see a therapist?
No.
No.
I don't see any reason to.
Well, you might need to because of me.
Well, yeah. That takes a marriage counselor.
We have a very different approach to life. So I'm all about quality of life, and Tom is very much about quantity of life. So he's trying to maintain his quality of life, through this. That's his MO, and I think that's good for him. Of course, he's not in a end of stage situation, and they don't expect him to be. But and he doesn't. I mean, he's doing the best he can. I think he's doing a really great job in just running his life. He goes to treatment. He comes back, goes to work. Doesn't complain. We're from Detroit, the Detroit area, and Henry Ford II had this phrase: "Never complain, never explain," and that's kind of Tom.
That's pretty remarkable. And you drive 45 minutes each way?
Oh yeah, a little more sometimes if there's heavy traffic, but at least 45 minutes each way. Yeah.
And the schedule right now is daily radiation, once a week chemo?
Right. And this is the second week, so I have 5 more weeks to go.
5 more weeks to go. When you go in for radiation, can you talk to us about kind of what you're thinking about or not thinking about?
I'm not thinking about anything in particular. It's very fast. I go in, sign in, put a gown on, sit in the waiting room for 2 to 5 minutes. Sometimes I don't even get to the waiting room. Sometimes I usually get there early, and sometimes they'll just be in the hallway and they'll just say, come on in. And I get on a gurney, and they put the mask on. They have a mask that's been fitted to my face, and that gets buckled down to the gurney, so that once I'm in that, I can't move my head. And they put music on, and I don't think of too much at all. I don't worry about it. I mean, you don't feel anything with the radiation.
Yeah.
So it's just, here it is. Let's go. Let me out of here.
What kind of music do they put on?
Whatever I want.
They do, because that's good.
Yeah.
Because so Tom is a classical pianist and doesn't like any popular music at all. And he had worked for popular performing artists, and he doesn't know who they are. So he came home one time after working for Stevie Nicks and said, well, I worked for Stevie Nicks, but I never met the guy. I said, well, that's a woman. And then who was it that worked for recently?
Billie Eilish.
Oh, Billie Eilish. He came home and he said, okay, I don't know. I'm working for Billie Eilish.
What's the story?
Is that a girl or a boy? I don't know. So he doesn't know. But he hates that kind of music. So I'm glad what do you have him put on, Ness and Dorma? You love Ness and Dorma.
I love it, but they just put on classical music, and it's usually some mix. It was Chopin. It's a little bit of everything. Greatest hits.
The greatest
classical hits. It's stuff like that.
It's
better than
Billie Eilish.
Than country western, and I like the Beatles. It's not that I don't like all popular music, but I think they're very talented. I like Queen. Molly introduced me to Queen.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think they're mostly talentless. So I'm I'm going to get letters about that, aren't I?
Maybe some. I don't know how many pop culture fanatics we have listening to our podcast, to be completely honest. Molly, what about you? 18 years ago, similar experience?
So no, Tom so I just kind of sucked it up. Actually, it was similar, except for the grilled cheese incident. The night before my surgery, I knew that I was going to lose a large portion of my right breast. And so we had a casting up party where we actually had 2 of my girlfriends come over, and I stood with my arms over my head, and Tom put bandages on my chest, from which he made
bandages.
Yeah, he made a
mold.
A mold from which we made I have to get the picture out to show you. Should be right.
So we made a mold of her torso.
Yeah.
And then I took the mold and I poured dental stone in it, which is harder than plaster.
Yeah.
It's what the dentists use to make teeth molds.
Yeah.
And
that's a funny story. I can't find the picture.
I had to take the mold off, and we had a beautiful torso, which her girlfriend painted, and she put gold leaf on it first.
Whoa.
And then painted pink and
here, I found it.
Painted
yeah. This is my bust pre-surgery.
Wow. Look at that.
So I had nursed. I always say my breasts had done what they were biologically engineered to do. They'd entertained 3 husbands and nursed 5 children. And so Tom would call my breasts the twins, and then after the right one is kind of looks like a divot on a golf course and a sand trap. So all the nipples all inverted, and he just now calls them the sisters. So he was very nice to me through the whole thing. And I would go after what? You weren't ready?
I told her, I said, every man wants
Oh, yeah,
variety, and I have it.
right. Yeah, in one woman.
Yeah.
So the funny part is that this is how we started the Pink Fund, is I went around on these speaking engagements and hauled this thing out. And Tom made this sign for me. Bus stop.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we had these bus stop speaking engagements. But anyway, I think I was disappointed. I remember the last radiation treatment I went to, we didn't go to any of them. And I said, well, do you want to go with me, the radiation? He said, well, not really. And I was sad. I was like, well, don't you want to see what I've been doing every day for the last 6 weeks? And he went reluctantly. But I was in a support group at the at the hospital where I was being treated. So every week I met with these women, and we still have lunch together annually. 2 of them passed away from breast cancer, but so that was kind of, I didn't have to burden him.
Yeah.
But he doesn't remember that he said this. And I recall him saying to me when this was all over, don't ever put me through this again. So I think it was stressful for him, like it is for me, internalizing it. But he doesn't remember saying that.
I don't. It's not something I would have said. So.
You were under duress.
I definitely relate to that.
Pardon?
No, I relate to that. I think for a lot of the work that we do today started when I was in chemo, and it took ARCO until relatively recently to be okay when I said the word cancer. Just the word cancer.
So what kind of cancer you had? What type did you have?
Stage 2B triple positive breast cancer. So not, curative setting, but like, HER2 positive, you just get treated for a long time, right? Because you have Herceptin, and goes on and on and on and on, and it's triple positive. So theoretically, you have hormone therapy. It just keeps going, right? It doesn't really end ever. And I skewed young. I skew young.
You're very young.
But I think for him, it was just, I think it took a while. And I think I just processed it faster. Or maybe I'm still processing it and I haven't realized it. But I think for him, it took him like 2.5 years to just even get to the point where the word was not triggering. So I absolutely relate to that. And I do think the caregivers, it's just different. It's just a different experience.
Well, the thing for me is that Tom is a very, very capable individual. And he has truly been by my side through everything, and he can fix everything. There was a period of time a couple of years ago before we bought a Roku for the TV where we had like 2 remotes to turn on the TV and then somehow get the channels. And I kept thinking, if you die on me, I will never be able to turn on the TV because I could never get the sequence straight of which buttons to press in which order. And then now I'm like, if you die on me, I don't know how to fix anything. I can do the dishes, but I don't know how to blow out the sprinkler system. I could change a light bulb. There's just so many things that he has done that I guess there's maybe this underbelly, even though we're assured he's not going to die from this, of fear. Yeah. And I told him, Tom, I cannot have a 4th husband. It is really embarrassing. That is throwing me into the Elizabeth Taylor category. And besides that, have you ever looked at that old people's dating site? Pathetic. So, right?
The fear is real.
No.
You'll stick it around.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fear. I think that's true for anybody, that's what's the worst case?
Yeah.
But I was never afraid of her dying. Never. I just knew this was going to be a slog. And it wasn't going to be easy for her, but I knew it wasn't going to be difficult for me. I was never worried.
How did you know?
Because she had stage 0.
Yeah, so it was
nowadays they don't even do surgery or radiation. They just they say we'll observe it.
Well, sometimes you get to they're not always going to do that. They're still going to recommend something.
Anyway,
But you
So,
could elect to observe.
yeah, wasn't stage 1 or 2 or 3. It was,
You know what I wonder, and this is off topic, but sometimes I wonder, even though the biopsy came back that it was, showing cancer, even though it was 0, hadn't formed a solid tumor. I sometimes wonder if I had elected to do nothing, if nothing would have happened.
Yeah.
But if nothing would have happened, and I had elected that, then there would be no pink fund, because we wouldn't have gone through this experience together where we experienced financial toxicity, and where I met other working women who were going to stop treatment and go back to work
Yes.
because their treatment was going to outlast their FMLA and they couldn't afford to lose their jobs. So I kind of wonder about that. But at the time, I mean, I think if somebody had said, well, you don't have to do anything, I wouldn't have elected to not do something.
It's funny how these decisions are something that are so real, right? 18 years later.
yeah.
It's real. It's real 18 years later, right? You think about that. I have that moment, I think, almost every quarter. Because I don't think I had the option of doing nothing. I mean, in reality, everyone has the option of doing nothing, right? Like that's always there. It's just the data is, at least in the type of cancer I had, very, very compelling that you should not do nothing. But it's those moments of decisions, right? It's like, do I do this type of chemo? Do I not? Do I do the lumpectomy? Do I do the mastectomy? Do I do the lumpectomy plus irradiation? What's that going to do my odds? I chose after a year of hormone therapy not to do hormone therapy. And annually, it's an annual thing for me. I'm like, did I make the right call?
So you're not doing hormone therapy?
No, I chose not.
Did you have the breast index test?
It was not relevant for me because I had HER2 positive breast cancer. So
Right. Okay. Right. That's right. Okay.
So none of the oncotype, mammoprint, none of them were kind of relevant. And for me, it was just a quality of life thing. It was a trade-off of quality of life because they put you into menopause, right? These drugs put you into menopause, and that was just severely debilitating for me. I tried it, and I just was like, I can't seem to get to the point where I feel compelled to continue doing it for 5 to 10 years. And there is a mortality impact that's relatively well understood. It's just, for me, I just couldn't justify it for myself. So it's a very personal decision. It's not guidelines. It's not standard of care. It's not what the oncologist, most oncologists look at me being like, what's wrong with you? And then there are oncologists who understand it, and I appreciate that. And they are supportive of it, and they help me manage it. And so I've seen both sides of it, and I understand both reactions, and I think it's fair on both sides. It's just, I think at some point it goes back to what you were saying earlier in the conversation, right? The patient has to make the decision. That responsibility lies on you. It just does, because you need to live with that in a way that nobody else can really live with it. So,
but I have witnessed circumstances where the patient wants to stop treatment and the family insists that that person doesn't. Puts a lot of pressure, right? So that's really hard.
Yes.
Like, the patient is like, I've had enough, I'm done. Yes. And then there's the opposite side where the family wants the patient to stop treatment. And I witnessed this with a young woman who passed away a year ago, January. And I thought, what she is doing to her family. And she was putting everything on Instagram every day. And you watched her deteriorate. She had lung drains every couple of weeks. She was on oxygen. She aged from a robust, like 44-year-old woman to looking like a 95-year-old wrinkled, tiny. It was so hard to watch. Now, I don't know that her family wanted her to stop treatment, but she didn't. She even, about 12 days before she died, put something out on Instagram that she was now entering hospice care, but she could go back to treatment. So she was really reluctantly kind of accepting her mortality, very reluctantly. And it was really hard to watch, but I couldn't not watch it. It was like that moth to flame. Like I had to watch it every day. What is she going to do? And I'm just thinking, why isn't somebody telling her to stop? Yeah. But again, is a physician, I mean, I don't know at what point the physician says, I'm done, I won't give you any more treatment. One of the books that wasn't the Being Mortal book. I'm trying to think who the doctor was that said when the treatment's no longer working and there are no more options, they kind of say to the patient, and this has nothing to do with us, but tell us what you're looking forward to in the next, and then they put a time frame that they
Being Mortal.
Yeah, Being Mortal. It was Being Mortal.
You know the book?
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. And then the response is, okay, we're going to do everything we can to get you there. But we're not in that scenario. But I do think there's so much that goes on between caregivers and the patient. And there's probably a lot of heightened discussion.
I would love to do an episode post-treatment when you're feeling better and your voice sounds better, which it sounds great right now. So I don't know what better is going to sound like, but when you feel like it sounds better, and check in on you and hear how you're doing post. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Sounds good. I'll
Molly,
ask Molly to come to my last radiation treatment with me.
oh
Yeah.
no.
So, because he's going to ring the bell.
Oh yeah.
I have to take a picture.
Of course. And are you going to ask her for a grilled cheese sandwich as well?
He actually makes better grilled cheese than I do.
Oh, okay.
So he can make his own. But I have been making a lot of soups, things that are, you could puree.
Yeah.
But he's doing a good job eating.
Yeah. You look good. You look really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I love that y'all are matching. Silver hair and everything.
I know.
It looks amazing.
I colored mine to match his.
Oh, really? Is that really true? Oh,
no. I was normally like a blonde, like a medium blonde. I finally was like, I look older coloring my hair, so I just go out there.
You look very chic.
Thank you.
That I knew from the first time I met you. Very, very chic. I'm super glad that you guys took the time. I really appreciate you taking it out, especially during treatment. I know how hard that can be. And we and everybody in this community is hoping that you go through treatment in the best possible way and that your routine of making coffee and doing your dishes in the morning does not get disrupted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Because I don't know how to make the coffee.
That's true. Molly needs a coffee. So
and when she starts to do the dishes, she never finishes. So
right.
Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This podcast, show notes, and newsletter is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of information on this podcast or any materials linked from this blog is at the user's own risk. The content here is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.